Are you ready to absolutely ruin your garden this year? Probably not. But the truth is, most people are sabotaging their entire harvest before the snow even melts. Welcome to the crucial month of March. We are talking about March 2026, a time when gardening fever takes over our minds. I promise you that by the end of this video, you will discover 20 surprising secrets that will save your future vegetable plants. But here is the hook. Almost everything your grandparents taught you about starting seeds on a windowsill is actually completely wrong. Yes, you heard me right. I'm going to reveal some hard truths that contradict popular belief. We will uncover the hidden dangers lurking in your little plastic pots. Do you think you are already doing everything perfectly? Leave a comment right now and tell me if you have ever killed a tray of little green sprouts. Let us see who is brave enough to admit it. Before we dive into the disasters, let us set the stage. Historically, humans have always relied on the changing of the seasons to dictate when to plant crops. But then, we invented indoor seed starting. We decided to play nature by bringing dirt inside our warm, comfortable houses. This created a completely artificial nursery environment. March is historically the biggest trap for gardeners. The days are finally getting a little bit longer. The sun feels a little bit warmer through the glass. Your brain releases chemicals that make you want to grow things immediately. But this artificial nursery is a highly delicate ecosystem. It lacks the wind, the intense natural sun, and the natural soil biology found outdoors. You are the absolute master of this tiny universe. Every single drop of water and every ray of artificial light depends on you. Understanding this background is vital. You are not just putting a seed in dirt. You are engineering a microclimate. Now let us break down the exact things you must never do in this delicate environment. Let us dive right into the very first major trap. You must absolutely stop planting your seeds way too early in the season. You look at the calendar, you see March 2026, and you feel the absolute urge to plant every single seed you own. But hold on a second, this is a massive mistake. What actually happens behind the scenes? When you start seeds like tomatoes or peppers too early indoors, they grow fast, very fast. But the weather outside in early spring is completely unpredictable. If the ground is still frozen, those big plants are trapped inside your house. For a vivid illustration, picture a teenager who has outgrown their shoes but refuses to buy new ones. The roots start wrapping around the tiny pot, strangling themselves. This is called becoming root-bound. The plant becomes stressed, yellow, and weak. There is a very common myth that older, larger seedlings will give you fruit much earlier in the summer. Let us debunk that right now. A small, healthy, vigorously growing seedling planted outside at the correct time will always outgrow a huge, stressed plant that sat in a cup for 10 weeks. The stressed plant takes weeks just to recover from the shock. Instead of rushing, look at your local last frost date. Count backward exactly the number of weeks recommended on the packet. Patience is your absolute best friend right now. Keep those seed packets closed just a little bit longer. Moving on to our next critical error. Never scoop up heavy dirt from your backyard to start your seeds indoors. It sounds so natural and organic, does it not? But using outdoor garden dirt for tiny indoor seeds is a recipe for absolute disaster. Outdoor soil is heavy and dense. When you put it in a small plastic container and water it, it turns into solid concrete. The delicate little roots of a baby plant cannot push through concrete. Furthermore, outdoor dirt is full of weed seeds, bugs, and fungal diseases. For a clear illustration, imagine trying to breathe while someone has wrapped you tightly in a thick, wet, heavy winter blanket. That is exactly how your seeds feel. They are suffocating. There is a persistent myth that natural outdoor soil makes indoor plants tougher and more resistant. We need to debunk this completely. Indoor seedlings need a sterile, light and fluffy environment to establish their first roots. You must use a dedicated seed starting mix. This mix usually contains peat moss or coconut coir and perlite. It holds moisture but allows oxygen to reach the roots. Oxygen is just as important as water. Give your seeds the soft, fluffy bed they deserve, and they will reward you with massive, healthy root systems. Save the real dirt for when they actually move outside in the summer. Here is the third enormous mistake that ruins thousands of plants every spring. Stop turning your seedling trays into a muddy swamp. Overwatering is the #1 killer of young indoor plants. When you see the soil look slightly dry on the very top, your first instinct is to grab the watering can. You pour water every single day because you want them to grow faster. But underneath the surface, the soil is completely soaked. The roots are drowning because there is absolutely no oxygen left in the soil. This leads to a horrific fungal disease called damping off. Your beautiful green stems will suddenly pinch at the bottom and fall over dead. For an illustration, imagine being forced to wear soaking wet socks inside heavy boots for 3 weeks straight. Your feet would rot. That is what happens to plant roots. There is a popular myth that tiny plants need constant daily watering to survive the dry indoor air. Let us debunk this right away. Plants actually need the soil to dry out slightly between waterings. This forces the roots to stretch and grow deeper in search of moisture. The correct method is to lift the pot. If it feels heavy, do not water it. If it feels light like a feather, then it is time to give them a drink. Learn to control your watering can, and your plants will be so much stronger. Now we must talk about the tragedy of the windowsill. Do not rely exclusively on a sunny window in March. This is a very hard truth to accept. You place your trays on the brightest window in your house. You think the sun is providing enough energy, but a few days later, your plants look like tall, pale green noodles. They are stretching frantically toward the glass. These are called leggy seedlings. They are incredibly weak and will easily snap in a gentle breeze. Why does this happen? The glass filters out a lot of the usable light spectrum. Plus, in March 2026, the days are still relatively short, and the sun is often hidden behind spring clouds. For a vivid illustration, imagine a person locked in a dark room, desperately stretching their arms toward a tiny crack of light in the ceiling. The plant is literally exhausting all its energy trying to find the sun. There is a common myth that any natural sunlight is always better than artificial light. Let us debunk that right now. For indoor seedlings, a cheap, bright LED grow light positioned just 2 inches above the leaves is infinitely better than a weak cloudy window. The light must be intense and direct. By using proper artificial lighting, your plants will grow short, thick, and incredibly sturdy. They will look like little green bodybuilders. Let us dig into the 5th mistake, which is burying your seeds way too deep. It is incredibly tempting to poke a deep hole in the dirt, drop the seed in, and bury it under an inch of heavy soil. You might think you are protecting it, but this is a fatal error. A tiny seed only contains a very limited amount of stored energy. It uses this energy to push the first set of leaves up to the surface to find light. If you bury it too deep, it will completely run out of energy and die before it ever sees the sun. For a great illustration, imagine trying to dig yourself out of a collapsed cave with only 1 small bottle of water for energy. If the surface is too far away, you will not make it. There is a persistent myth that planting seeds deeply gives them a stronger, deeper root system from the very beginning. Let us definitively debunk this. The depth of the seed has nothing to do with final root strength. A general rule of thumb is to plant a seed only twice as deep as its own width. For very tiny seeds like lettuce or chamomile, you do not even cover them with dirt at all. You just press them gently into the surface of the soil because they actually need light to germinate. Always read the seed packet for exact depth instructions. Do not force your tiny seeds to run a marathon just to reach the surface. Here is a mistake that causes endless frustration every single spring. Do not skip labelling your seedling pots. You sit down at your table with 5 different packets of seeds. You plant tomatoes, hot peppers, sweet peppers, cabbages, and eggplants. You tell yourself that you will absolutely remember which row is which. You are confident, but 3 weeks later, you have trays full of identical green leaves. You have absolutely no idea which plant is the incredibly spicy ghost pepper and which one is the mild bell pepper. For a clear illustration, imagine taking all the labels off the cans in your kitchen pantry. When you go to make dinner, you might open a can of peaches, or you might open a can of dog food. It is a complete mystery. There is a funny myth that a true, experienced gardener can identify any plant just by looking at its first 2 baby leaves. Let us debunk that entirely. Even professional botanists cannot easily tell the difference between a baby tomato and a baby tomatillo. The plants have different spacing needs and different planting times. You must know what they are. Take 2 extra seconds to write the name and the date on a piece of plastic or wood. Stick it in the dirt immediately. You will save yourself a massive headache when it is time to move them out into the garden in May. Let us talk about container size. A huge mistake is starting tiny seeds in massive pots. You might think you are doing the plant a favour. You want to save time. You think that by using a giant container, you will never have to transplant them into a bigger pot later. But this logic is completely flawed. A tiny seed has a tiny root system. When you put it in a massive pot full of soil, those little roots can only drink a tiny fraction of the water you pour in. The rest of the soil stays soaking wet for weeks. This massive amount of wet, unused soil becomes cold, sour, and full of rot. For a vivid illustration, imagine putting a newborn baby alone in a giant Olympic swimming pool. The baby cannot utilize all that space and is in immediate danger. There is a widespread myth that plants hate being moved from pot to pot, so it is better to start them huge. Let us debunk this right now. Most vegetable plants actually thrive when they are moved gradually into slightly larger pots. It stimulates the root system to grow thicker and branch out. Start your seeds in small cells or cups. When the roots reach the edges and the plant has a few sets of true leaves, gently move it to a medium pot. Give them the right size home for their current age. They will grow much faster and stay much healthier. Moving on to a silent killer of early spring gardens. Do not ignore the extreme importance of soil temperature. You leave your trays on a table in a chilly room and wonder why nothing is happening after 2 weeks. The air might feel okay to you, but the wet soil is actually freezing cold. Most summer vegetables like peppers and eggplants absolutely refuse to wake up if the dirt is cold. They need warm soil to signal that winter is over. For a great illustration, imagine trying to sleep in a bed with wet, freezing cold sheets. You would curl up into a tight ball and refuse to move. That is exactly what the seed is doing. There is a common myth that normal room temperature is perfectly fine for germinating all types of seeds. Let us debunk this immediately. While room temperature is okay for lettuce or broccoli, warm weather crops demand soil temperatures around 80 degrees Fahrenheit to sprout quickly and evenly. This is why professional growers use electric heat mats under their trays. The heat mat gently warms the dirt from the bottom. But remember, once the seeds pop up and show green leaves, you must turn the heat mat off. They need warmth to wake up, but they need cooler air to grow strong and sturdy. Pay attention to the temperature of the dirt, not just the air. Here is the 9th mistake that comes entirely from a place of love, but ends in disaster. Stop fertilizing your tiny baby plants. It is very common to see a tiny green sprout and think it needs immediate food to grow big and strong. You mix up a batch of liquid fertilizer and pour it over the delicate roots. Within 2 days, the leaves turn brown, crisp up, and the plant dies. You have literally burned them to death. Why? The first 2 leaves that appear are called cotyledons. They are actually part of the seed itself, and they contain all the food the plant needs for its first couple of weeks of life. For a vivid illustration, imagine forcing a newborn baby to eat a massive, heavily seasoned steak. The baby's system simply cannot handle it and will become violently ill. There is a dangerous myth that adding fertilizer early speeds up the germination process and guarantees huge plants. Let us absolutely debunk this. Fertilizer is not magic dust. It is a chemical process that requires established, mature roots to process. You should never, ever add any fertilizer until the plant has grown at least 2 sets of its true leaves. And even then, You must dilute the fertilizer to a quarter of its normal strength. Treat their roots gently. Give them time to build their own internal systems before you start forcing artificial food on them. Let us talk about those clear plastic lids. A major error is leaving the humidity dome on for way too long. When you first plant your seeds, covering the tray with a clear plastic dome is a brilliant idea. It traps the moisture and heat, creating a perfect tiny greenhouse for the seeds to wake up in. But the mistake happens after they sprout. Many people leave that plastic lid completely closed for weeks. The environment inside becomes a humid, dripping, stagnant sauna. This is the absolute perfect breeding ground for deadly white fuzzy mold and rot. For a clear illustration, imagine wearing a heavy plastic raincoat while sitting inside a hot, steamy sauna for 5 days straight. You would be covered in sweat and unable to breathe properly. There is a common myth that tropical plants need 100% humidity all the time to survive indoors. Let us debunk this. While they like moisture, they absolutely require fresh moving air to prevent disease. The golden rule is this: the absolute moment you see more than half of your seeds break through the soil and show green, you must remove the dome. Take it completely off. Let the fresh air circulate around the stems. This single action will prevent massive fungal outbreaks and save your entire tray of hard work. We have reached mistake number 11. You must stop sowing your seeds way too thickly in one spot. When you open a packet of seeds, they look so incredibly tiny. You look at your small pot and think, I will just sprinkle 20 seeds in here, just in case some of them do not grow. Well, guess what happens? All 20 of them grow. Now you have a dense, tangled forest of microscopic plants fighting a brutal war for survival in a 2-inch space. They choke each other out, competing for light, water, and nutrients. For a vivid illustration, imagine locking 50 hungry people inside a tiny closet with only one single sandwich. The competition will be fierce, and no one will thrive. There is a myth that planting heavily is a smart insurance policy against bad seeds. Let us debunk that right now. While you can plant 2 or 3 seeds per hole to be safe, dumping a whole pile is destructive. If you do plant multiples, you must be completely ruthless later. You have to use tiny scissors to snip off the weaker plants, leaving only one strong survivor per pot. Do not try to pull them apart with your fingers, because their roots are completely tangled together. Pulling them will destroy the roots of the one you actually want to keep. Plant sparingly and be brave enough to thin them out. Let us explore the actual mechanics of giving your plants a drink. A very common mistake is always watering from the top down. You grab a watering can or a cup and pour water directly over the top of the delicate plants and the soil. This causes several huge problems. First, the heavy splash physically knocks the tiny plants over, damaging their fragile stems. Second, top watering often creates a hard crust on the surface of the dirt, while leaving completely dry pockets of soil hidden underneath. The roots cannot access the water. For a vivid illustration, imagine standing outside holding an umbrella in a rainstorm. The water bounces off the umbrella, but your feet and the ground beneath you stay completely dry. There is a widespread myth that watering from above is exactly how nature does it with rain, so it must be the best way indoors. Let us debunk this immediately. In nature, rain falls softly over hours, soaking deeply into the earth. Your watering can is like a sudden, violent flood. The absolute best method for seedlings is called bottom watering. You place your pots, which must have holes in the bottom, into a solid tray filled with 1 inch of water. The soil acts like a sponge and slowly drinks the water up from the bottom. This encourages the roots to grow downward and keeps the top of the soil dry, preventing mold. Here is a mistake that causes massive, unseen stress to your plants. Stop watering your seedlings with freezing cold tap water straight out of the sink. In March, the water travelling through the underground pipes is often icy cold. When you take that freezing water and dump it directly onto the warm soil of your indoor nursery, you send the plant roots into a state of deep shock. The plant literally freezes up and stops growing for days. Furthermore, fresh tap water is often heavily treated with chlorine. For a clear illustration, imagine you are sleeping peacefully in a warm, cosy bed and someone suddenly dumps a bucket of ice water mixed with pool chemicals all over you, you would scream and go into shock. There is a myth that plants are tough and do not care at all about water temperature. Let us absolutely debunk that. The tiny feeder roots of a baby pepper or tomato are incredibly sensitive to rapid temperature drops. The solution is incredibly easy. Fill your watering cans or jugs the night before. Let the water sit out in the room for 24 hours. This allows the water to reach a comfortable room temperature, preventing any shock. Also, letting it sit allows a lot of the harsh chlorine to evaporate naturally into the air. Room temperature water is a game changer for continuous, healthy growth. Moving on to hygiene. You must never reuse old, dirty pots from last year without cleaning them first. It is March 2026, and you pull out the plastic trays you used last spring. They still have crusty dirt and white salt rings stuck to the sides. You fill them with fresh dirt and plant new seeds. This is a massive biological hazard. Those crusty old pots are harbouring dormant fungal spores, bacteria, and microscopic insect eggs that survive the winter. As soon as you add warm water and fresh dirt, those pathogens wake up and immediately attack your new seeds. For a vivid illustration, imagine cooking a beautiful expensive steak and serving it to your guests on a dirty plate that has been sitting in the sink for 6 months. It is disgusting and dangerous. There is a myth that old dirt inside pots is perfectly sterile after sitting dry in a freezing garage all winter. Let us debunk this right now. Fungal spores are incredibly tough and are designed by nature to survive extreme weather. Before you plant a single seed, you must wash your old containers, scrub the dirt out with warm soapy water, then give them a quick soak in a mild solution of water and hydrogen peroxide or a tiny splash of bleach. Rinse them well. Starting with clean equipment is the easiest way to prevent mysterious diseases from wiping out your entire tray. Let us talk about a very common location error. Do not place your seedling trays directly over a blasting radiator or a powerful heating vent. You know that seeds need warmth to germinate, so you think placing them right on top of the heat source is a brilliant idea. But radiators in early spring can get incredibly hot. The intense dry heat completely bakes the bottom of your plastic trays. It cooks the delicate roots and evaporates all the moisture out of the soil in a matter of hours. The dirt turns into dry, dusty powder. For a clear illustration, imagine sitting in a chair that is pushed right up against a blazing campfire. At first, it feels nice, but very quickly your skin starts to burn and you become dangerously dehydrated. There is a myth that more heat always equals faster, better seed sprouting. Let us debunk this entirely. While seeds need a gentle, consistent warmth of around 75 to 80 degrees, they absolutely hate extreme, fluctuating blasts of dry heat. Radiators also completely destroy the ambient humidity in the air around the plants. If you need warmth, use a proper electric seedling heat mat that is thermostatically controlled. Keep your plants away from direct blasts of furnace air. They need a stable, gentle environment, not a sauna. Here is a secret that separates the amateurs from the professionals. You are making a huge mistake if you ignore the need for a gentle breeze. Indoor air is usually completely still. There is no wind in your living room. Because of this, your plants grow tall and look green, but their main stems are incredibly weak. They have never had to fight against a physical force. When you finally take them outside in May, the very first gust of spring wind will snap their stems in half, destroying months of hard work. For a vivid illustration, imagine an astronaut who has lived in zero gravity for a year. They look perfectly healthy, but when they return to Earth, they cannot even stand up because their muscles have completely atrophied. There is a myth that indoor plants are perfectly safe and happy, being completely protected from all the elements. Let us debunk that right now. Plants need physical stress to grow strong tissues. You must simulate the wind. Take a small, cheap oscillating fan and set it up near your plant trays. Turn it on low for about an hour a day. The gentle swaying motion forces the plant to release structural chemicals that thicken the main stalk. By the time they go outside, they will have stems as thick as pencils, ready to face the real world. Let us dig into your actual seed supply. Stop using old, improperly stored seeds and expecting perfect results. You dig into a drawer and find a crumpled paper packet of seeds from 5 years ago. It has been sitting in a hot kitchen cabinet, exposed to humidity and extreme temperature swings. You plant them and wait a month, but nothing happens. Seeds are living, breathing organisms in a state of deep sleep. If they are stored in a hot, humid place, they burn through their tiny energy reserves and die inside the shell. For a vivid illustration, imagine trying to bake a perfect cake using baking powder that expired a decade ago. It will absolutely not rise, no matter how perfectly you follow the recipe. There is a widespread myth that dry seeds will essentially last absolutely forever. Let us debunk this right now. While some seeds, like tomatoes, can last for several years if stored perfectly in a cool, dark, dry place, other seeds like onions or parsnips lose their viability after just one single year. Before you waste precious time and potting soil in March, do a simple germination test. Place 10 seeds inside a damp paper towel, put it in a plastic bag, and keep it warm. Check back in a week. If only 2 seeds sprout out of 10, throw the packet away and buy fresh seeds for 2026. Your time is worth more than old seeds. Here is a mistake that causes endless confusion. Do not treat all your vegetable plants exactly the same. You have tomatoes, cucumbers, lettuce, and broccoli all sitting in the exact same tray, getting the exact same amount of water, heat, and light. This is a biological disaster. Lettuce and broccoli are cool weather crops. They absolutely hate the heat mat and will grow perfectly fine in a chilly room. Tomatoes and peppers are warm weather crops that demand high temperatures. Cucumbers hate having their roots disturbed and grow so incredibly fast that they will take over the whole tray in 2 weeks. For a clear illustration, imagine putting a heavy winter snow coat on a husky dog and then putting a tiny t-shirt on a hairless cat and throwing them both out into the snow. One will overheat and one will freeze. They have completely different needs. There is a myth that because they are all going into the same garden eventually, they want the same indoor care. Let us debunk this completely. You must group your plants by their specific needs. Keep your cool weather crops in a separate tray in a cooler window. Keep your hot peppers on the heat mat. Do not start fast-growing squash seeds on the same day you start slow-growing peppers. Read the instructions and respect their individual requirements. We are nearing the end, and this mistake is all about human psychology. Stop giving up and digging around in the dirt when your seeds do not sprout immediately. It is day 6. You look at the pot and nothing is green. You start to panic. You grab a toothpick and start digging into the wet dirt to see if the seed is doing anything. In doing so, you accidentally break the microscopic, fragile white root that was just starting to emerge. You just murdered your plant out of sheer impatience. Different plants operate on completely different biological clocks. A radish might pop up in 3 days. A super hot chili pepper might take 21 days of sitting in warm, wet dirt before it decides to show its face. For a vivid illustration, imagine constantly opening the oven door every 3 minutes while baking a delicate cake. The temperature drops, the cake falls flat, and the whole process is ruined. There is a myth that if a seed does not sprout in a week, it is totally dead and rotting. Let us debunk this. As long as the soil is warm and slightly damp, magic is happening below the surface. Leave them alone. Do not dig. Do not poke. Trust the process. Write the date on the label and find something else to do to distract yourself while nature takes its time. Finally, the 20th and perhaps the most devastating mistake of all. You must never move your indoor plants directly out into the bright spring sun without warning. It is a beautiful, warm day in late spring. You take your tray of perfect green seedlings from your kitchen counter and put them right in the middle of the garden under the blazing sun. By the afternoon, the leaves turn completely white, dry up, and die. The plants were severely sunburned and went into massive systemic shock. The glass on your windows blocks the harsh ultraviolet rays of the sun. Your plants have zero natural sunscreen built up in their leaves. For a clear illustration, imagine a person who has lived in a dark basement for a year suddenly walking out into a desert at noon wearing only a swimsuit. Their skin would burn severely in minutes. There is a dangerous myth that indoor plants are eager and fully ready for the wild immediately. Let us completely debunk this. You must perform a process called hardening off. Over the course of 7 to 10 days, you slowly introduce them to the outside world. Start with 1 hour of dappled shade, then bring them back inside. The next day, 2 hours of morning sun. Gradually increase their exposure to wind, sun, and changing temperatures. This allows them to build up protective layers and prevents a total collapse. So there you have the turning points for your spring gardening strategy. We have walked through the absolute most critical areas that happen behind closed doors every single spring. Think about the significance of what we just uncovered. The plot twist here is that almost everything we naturally want to do, like watering constantly, giving them extreme heat, or planting massive pots early, actually works directly against the biology of the seed. By holding back your enthusiasm just a little bit, providing bright artificial light, ensuring gentle airflow, and respecting the hardening off process, you will create a harvest in 2026 that will absolutely shock your neighbours. Remember the main thought. Your indoor seed starting setup is a highly controlled laboratory, not the wild outdoors. Treat it with precision. I want to sincerely thank you for spending your valuable time watching this. Your garden is going to be incredibly successful this year. Now do not forget the most important part. Hit that subscribe button so you never miss a gardening secret, and please leave a like on this video to support the channel. Now I have a question for you to answer in the comments. Which one of these 20 mistakes have you secretly made in the past? Do not be shy. Let us talk about it down below.